They destroyed a life that had existed for centuries, and no one noticed. It may sound unbelievable, but this is the sad reality that few people know. While the world keeps uncovering mysteries of nature and the past, one of the oldest beings on the planet was wiped out without any warning, without anyone realizing its true value. This curious fact reveals a deep human flaw. Ignorance and haste can lead to irreversible losses. Imagine accidentally killing a living monument, an animal that carried centuries of stories and secrets in its cells. It's shocking to think that even in the 21st century, we can still make such serious scientific mistakes. In this video, we'll explore how it happened, the errors that led to this tragedy, and what we can learn from this story. Get ready to dive into mysteries, historical facts, and curiosities that will change how you see life on this planet. Imagine growing up believing in something, seeing it in books, movies, toys, and then discovering it was all a mistake. It's curious how some scientific discoveries feel like they were written by fiction authors. The Brontosaurus is a perfect example. For decades, it was one of the most famous dinosaurs in the world. Its name conjured images of massive creatures roaming prehistoric forests. And for a long time, no one suspected that this iconic figure was actually the result of a scientific mistake. In 1877, paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh discovered fossils he believed belonged to a new species, which he named Brontosaurus. But later, it was revealed that those bones actually belonged to an already known dinosaur, Apatosaurus. A simple mistake, but one that became one of the most interesting historical facts in modern paleontology. What's even more curious is that the mistake wasn't corrected right away. For nearly a century, the Brontosaurus continued to be treated as a legitimate dinosaur. Movies like Jurassic Park, school textbooks, and even museums helped feed that illusion. And this highlights an interesting fact. Science, as precise as it strives to be, is also built by humans, and humans make mistakes. A misinterpreted detail, the rush to publish findings before competitors. All of that can create a cycle of misinformation that lasts for decades. The Brontosaurus case is a powerful reminder that many of science's greatest mysteries are often shaped more by ambition and ego than truth itself. And the most fascinating part, in 2015, a new study suggested the Brontosaurus might actually be a distinct species after all. In other words, the error may have become the truth, sort of. This kind of twist doesn't just happen with fossils. Think about how many times you've believed in something with absolute certainty, only to find out later you were wrong, or worse, that your belief was based on incomplete information. Science, like life, is a continuous process of trial, error, and correction. The Brontosaurus, even though it was a scientific fraud for many years, played a crucial role in making paleontology popular. It sparked curiosity in children and adults, inspired studies, research, films, and to this day, it serves as a gateway for those intrigued by the mysteries of the past. And that brings us to other moments when scientific misinterpretation led to unexpected, and sometimes tragic, consequences, like what happened on Mars. But that's a story for the next point. In 1996, NASA made an announcement that stopped the world. They said they had found signs of life on Mars. Curious and exciting fact that made headlines everywhere. The claim was based on a meteorite found in Antarctica, believed to have come straight from Mars. Inside the rock, scientists thought they saw fossilized bacteria, what could have been the first proof of life beyond Earth. A historic moment, the kind that makes people dream about Martian colonies and space travel becoming real. But soon, the excitement turned into disappointment. More detailed studies showed that those bacteria were just mineral formations caused by natural processes, and there was no life there. It was a mistake. Big one. One of those that proves how even the greatest minds can get carried away by the thrill of discovery. These kinds of errors, as frustrating as they are, happen more often than people think. And sometimes they don't just disappoint, they destroy. A tragic example is the case of the quahog clam. In 2006, researchers found a clam in the icy waters of Iceland. To study it better, they froze it and opened its shell, only to realize later that it was over 500 years old, the oldest known animal ever recorded. A true natural treasure accidentally killed. Isn't that curious? Something that could have told us centuries of history, lost due to a lack of information. These situations reveal an interesting truth. Scientific knowledge, no matter how advanced it seems, is still full of gaps, and one wrong step can come with a high price. And here's something to reflect on. How often do we do the same in our own lives? Jumping to conclusions, judging without context, or acting before we know the full story. The case of life on Mars that wasn't, and the world's oldest clam that died unknowingly, are powerful examples of how fragile knowledge really is. It's not just about knowing, it's about interpreting carefully. Science is made of attempts, yes, but also of humility. And maybe that's the key. Being willing to admit mistakes and learn from them. Because the next mistake might not just be disappointing or a fun curiosity. It might be a true tragedy, like the one that happened with the oldest tree in the world, cut down by accident, changing forever how we see the value of nature. Now imagine this. You're out in the field, cutting down a tree for research, not knowing you've just killed the oldest living organism on Earth. Sounds like an exaggeration, right? But that's exactly what happened in 1963 with a tree known as Prometheus, which stood in the Rocky Mountains of Nevada, USA. A student named Donald Rusk Curry was studying climate change and needed to analyze the growth rings of ancient trees. Without realizing the importance of that particular tree, he cut it down. Only afterward did scientists discover that Prometheus was more than 4,800 years old. A true historical fact, and a tragic one. It's curious how a simple action, done with good intentions, can lead to irreversible consequences. Nature, unlike science, doesn't offer a Control plus Z. That mistake became one of the biggest regrets in environmental science history. Prometheus wasn't destroyed out of malice, but out of ignorance. And that story reminds us of something crucial. Ignorance, even unintentional, has consequences. The loss of that tree sparked a global preservation movement and made people rethink the value of non-human life. How many stories could that tree have told? How many mysteries and curiosities were recorded in its rings? An interesting fact is that today, ancient trees like this are strictly protected, but only because someone made a mistake first. And that's the strange beauty of science. It learns from its failures, but sometimes the cost is just too high. And this lesson, interestingly, doesn't apply only to environmental science. In the tech world, a seemingly small slip also caused billions in damages. In 1965, British computer scientist Tony Hoare created the concept of null, a placeholder in programming that means nothing. Sounds simple, right? But that nothing turned into a nightmare. For decades, poorly managed null values have caused system crashes, data leaks, and billions of dollars in losses worldwide. Hoare himself later called it his billion-dollar mistake. Funny, isn't it? A single line of code, as invisible as a tree ring, changed the course of modern computing. And that connection between nature and technology shows how even the smallest mistakes can leave a deep mark. Speaking of small mistakes, science once thought it had discovered a new form of water. But things weren't exactly what they seemed. In the 1960s, a group of Soviet scientists thought they had discovered a completely new type of water. They called it polywater, and the idea quickly became one of science's biggest mysteries at the time. This new kind of water seemed to have strange properties. It was denser, evaporated more slowly, and froze in an unusual way. For many, it looked like the start of a revolution. Just imagine, something as basic as water being rediscovered, with all sorts of new technological possibilities. The scientific world was buzzing. But after more research, the truth came out. Polywater was just regular water contaminated with impurities, like human sweat. Yes, sweat. A curious mistake that fooled a lot of smart people, and showed how even the most serious scientists can get swept away by excitement. Mistakes like this aren't rare. And often, they're so subtle that people don't notice until much later, after a lot of time and money has already been spent. In 2011, another case made headlines around the world. Scientists from the Opera experiment, working between Italy and Switzerland, announced they had detected neutrinos traveling faster than the speed of light. If true, it would shake the foundations of modern physics. Even Einstein's theories would be in trouble. It was an interesting fact, the kind that grabs attention even from people who don't usually follow science. But the excitement didn't last long. Soon after, it was discovered that the error came from a loose fiber optic cable. A single unplugged wire, something anyone could miss, had thrown centuries of scientific knowledge into doubt. Funny how the smallest details can cause earthquakes when they're in the wrong place. These two stories reveal something few people talk about, the hidden risk in the details. Polywater seemed magical, neutrinos looked like they had beaten the speed of light. But in the end, it all came down to technical glitches and rushed interpretations. And this doesn't only happen in labs. In everyday life we also make calculation errors. Trusting a gut feeling too much, believing something without checking, or making decisions based on misunderstood information. The most important thing here isn't the mistake itself, but what it teaches us. Because sometimes, the most ridiculous errors reveal how much we still need to learn. And when science stumbles, it doesn't just fix itself. It shows us the backstage of knowledge. Speaking of mistakes and illusions, the story behind the missing link hoax might be even more surprising than you'd think. Science is made of questions, and sometimes in the rush to find answers, it loses its way. One of the most curious cases happened when scientists believed they had discovered artificial canals on Mars. This was in the 19th century, when telescopes started showing more detailed images of the red planet. An astronomer named Giovanni Schiaparelli observed thin lines on Mars's surface and called them canali. The word, which meant natural channels in Italian, was translated into English as canals, giving the idea of constructions made by intelligent beings. And just like that, the theory was born that intelligent life existed on Mars, building giant hydraulic works. A translation error became one of the most misunderstood historical facts in modern science, fueling speculation for decades. But it doesn't stop there. Another famous case was the Cardiff Giant in the United States. In 1869, workers found a petrified giant, nearly 3 meters tall, buried on a farm. The discovery became a real spectacle. Crowds paid to see the supposed giant human fossil. The mystery took over the press, and many believed this was proof that giants really existed. Only later was it revealed that it was all a hoax, a sculpture purposely buried by a businessman looking to make easy money. It's curious how, even with so many tools and knowledge, humans still fall for stories that sound too good to be true. And sometimes the ones who get fooled aren't just the public, but the scientists themselves, who let their desire to believe take over. And perhaps the most emblematic case of all was the Piltdown Man, the famous missing link of human evolution. In 1912 in England, a researcher presented a skull that, according to him, was proof of the direct ancestor between apes and humans. The find was accepted for many years as an important fact, until decades later, advanced tests showed the skull was fake, a combination of bones from different species, manipulated to look like a real discovery. The fraud was so well done it fooled scientists worldwide. And this shows us something deep. Even science, which should be the place of reason, is also subject to beliefs, vanity, and pressure. These mistakes don't diminish science. They show it is, above all, human. And speaking of humanity, few things reveal it as much as the way we treat life, even when it's over 500 years old and lives at the bottom of the sea. So, what did you think about this story? It's amazing how science, even with all its advances, is still full of mysteries and mistakes that make us question what we really know, right? Historical facts like this show us that curiosity must always go hand in hand with humility. After all, nature doesn't forgive. Have you ever stopped to think about how many other secrets might be hidden, waiting to be discovered or, worse, destroyed without us even realizing? Now I want to know from you. Which of these stories surprised you the most? Do you think science is prepared to handle such serious mistakes? Leave your comment down below, let's talk. And if you want to keep learning about curiosities, interesting facts, and mysteries that challenge our understanding, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any new content and can keep diving into this fascinating universe with us.